Hello, everybody. Robert Villar here. Hope all is well. Wanted to give this quick introduction to Excel video to you all. In addition to this, we'll have additional videos on additional areas of Excel that hopefully you will find useful as you go into using Excel for your studies, business, work, job, personal life, etc. I'm going to start with a quick introduction to Excel. Pull that up, and hopefully this makes sense to you all. Okay. Hopefully you're seeing my Excel screen. On my Excel screen, what I have pulled up is essentially a blank worksheet. I want to talk about the different areas of the Excel worksheet and talk a little bit about why it is that we use Excel. We use Excel for a whole bunch of different things, not just to do math or arithmetic. We use Excel for other things besides that. Okay, obviously we can do charting, we can do organization, we can do manipulation of text, we can access other data and create graphical diagrams. And as we watch further videos on this, we'll see more and more different uses. And in some cases, you'll be able to adapt them to things that you use. By default, most of the Excel files that we'll be creating are going to come with a file extension of an XLS. That's typically going to be how you're going to identify an Excel file. However, there's a bunch of different file formats that you'll be able to use in Excel. One of the more common one is comma separated value. It's essentially a text file that you can bring in. However, the way that the formatting of that text file is set up, it's either using commas to separate the different columns, or in some cases, we can use a tab separated file. And depending on which file you're looking at, how you import it into Excel looks a little different. But at the end of the day, it's a text file, and potentially you've seen it when you go to your bank and you download a bank file transaction. That's one of the options that's typically available for you is either comma or tax delineated or tab delineated, and you'll be able to bring that in, and all the information will come into different column formats. So I want to go through the very brief introduction on what I have pulled up. Essentially, this is the Excel workbook. A workbook consists of this and different tabs, and the tabs along the bottom. And here I have a blank tab, an active tab, a contextual tab, and a shortcut tab. Each one of those is what essentially makes up a file. And now it used to be that your default worksheet would open up with three sheets on the bottom, three different worksheets on the bottom. Most recently, I'm seeing most of the software only opening up with one sheet. That's not a problem. You can add additional worksheets by simply clicking on this little plus sign here, and it'll add a new worksheet to your file if you need more. I want to talk about the different areas of the QuickBook of the Excel program itself and some of the areas that we'll be dealing with. Okay, I do want to start with up here, the one I've highlighted, the Book 1 Excel. That is the title bar. That is essentially telling us the name of the file, and it's reminding us that we're using Excel. Over to the left, this is called the Quick Access Toolbar. And in this Quick Access Toolbar, we have some basic functions by default: save, undo, redo, and I've customized mine. We'll talk more about that later on in this video. We have the File button, and then we have tabs across the top: the Home tab, Insert tab, Page Layout, Formulas, etc. These tabs, each time you select a different tab, the ribbon, which is what this area below the tabs are called, will be updated based on which tab you have selected. Now, the File button does not have one. The File button works essentially in a background format, so there is no ribbon. It opens up a different display for you. Your ribbon. Sometimes your ribbon disappears. If you lose your ribbon or you need to hide it, You can, and you can always get it back by, so in this case, I hid my tab, and I can go ahead and click on this little down arrow, and it gives me different options. So full screen mode, show tabs, always show ribbon, hide, quick access toolbar, right? That's that quick access toolbar. So there's some customization that you can do to your own file. Excel essentially is a series or a combination of columns. And in Excel, all of your columns are going to be identified by a letter. Starts with the letter A and it goes all the way out 16,000. And so basically it goes through the alphabet, A to Z. After that, it's going to start up with double A, B, A, C, etc. And then it'll keep going until the end of the alphabet, or until the end of its range, which is currently a little bit over 16,000 columns. As far as rows, those are numbered. And in Excel, all of your rows are numbered from 1 to over 1 million. Essentially, you can have over 17 billion different pieces of information, and a piece of information is in a cell. So each cell is the intersection of a column and a row. That is a cell. We know what the name of that cell is because in this case, it's highlighted in green, and that tells me that that's the selected cell. And I can click on my mouse with my mouse, and it selects a different cell. And so a couple things happen. First, the column is highlighted and the row is highlighted. And that's so you can kind of identify where it is in the document that you are. But it also, in this little box up here, this gives us the literal address or the name box for the cell that has been referenced. Or if we have multiple cells that have been selected, we can actually later on see how we can name that. And so what we're seeing here is that, we started at C3, but as we go, excuse me, as we select, we can see that we have selected multiple columns and multiple rows. So what this in the name box, what it is telling us is that what we have selected, in this case, are 9 rows and 4 columns. We go 5th column, we go back to 1 column, and you see in your selection area how that changes. Talked about the rows, talked about the columns, talked about the tab buttons on the bottom. Over the top right-hand side, we see some very basic window controls. Those are, Windows or Mac. If you're using your Mac, they'll be in a different spot. But essentially, your operating system's controls are going to be available to you. There's a search function that you can have here. This FX or formula bar, right? This bar here, we'll have a video on more information there, but that's essentially where you're going to enter information. And you're going to enter information or you're going to enter numbers, right? And so that's going to be in the formula bar. However, we can also use that to enter formulas later on to have Excel do some math for us. So, if I say, okay, what's 2 and 3? Well, then I can say, okay, what is 2 plus 3? And it's going to give me 5. I could also say, and I'm just showing off here, I could also say, okay, what's 2 times 5? Or 2 times 3, and it's going to give me 6. So what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that not only can we put in text, we can put in numbers, and then we can also put in a formula that tells the computer to do something with our numbers, okay? And so more on this in subsequent videos. On the bottom, down here, this is the status bar, okay? Status bar appears here. It'll tell you different things. Right now it says that we're ready. It also tells me that, there's an accessibility issue. It's uncertain. That's for, folks who have the need to either to view this spreadsheet either in an audio format or view it on a screen viewer, that's what that will do for you. We already talked about these sheets and how you can add or delete sheets. One other neat thing is the page view button. So if you want to see what this looks like on what is essentially the page layout for what you have, you can click on the middle button there, which is the page view. The standard is the essential grid for the default of it. Okay. Now, after I've done that, it did add some information that wasn't there before. These little dotted lines that are going from top to bottom, that's going to give us an idea of where our margins are going to be. So as we go designing our information, we can use that. Last thing I want to talk about are going to be the scrolls. So we can scroll up or down vertically. We can scroll horizontally using these. You can also use your mouse, right? So you can take your cursors up and downs. You can use your page ups and page downs. And then let's say that you need more information or less information, you can use the quick zooms. Down here, you've got the zoom controls. You could actually type in a zoom amount that you wanted to, or you can use the arrows to zoom yourself up or down. As far as moving around, I told you that we start at column A. The last column in Excel is actually XFD. And that basically is the 16,000th column out there, right? And then going down, our last row is essentially going to be 1 billion, 1 million, excuse me, 1,048,576. That's the total number of rows on the way down that we're going to have. Okay. And it just follows a regular pattern. So I'm going to switch tabs now to one that has some information because once we're in an active tab, we're going to be able to see, right? And I already talked about this, but by clicking on any one of my numbers, you essentially are seeing here is a column reference and a row reference, right? And between that column and row, the green cell is the active cell. That's the cell name. And that gets highlighted for you. Told you, that, you can use your regular keyboard controls, ups, downs, page up, page down. You can also use your mouse to get around. And it's, a useful function. There's a lot that is just personal preferences. So we talked about the ribbons. The home ribbon is, the home tab, and the ribbon for the home is going to be the most common one. That's where we're going to spend most of our time. Okay. And so most of the functions that we're going to need are going to be on that home tab. Okay. I do spend a lot of time on other things. So depending on what you're doing, the other tabs that are out there, insert gives you things like inserting tables, diagrams, charts into your worksheet. The page layout, that's really useful in helping you prepare and print your documents or get it ready for printing. Formulas tabs, that's when you want to insert formulas and name references for your cells, things like that. The data tab, that's when you're working with data, you can do things like data validation. So make sure that, if you're asking for a telephone number, make sure that when the phone number gets put in, it's actually put in the proper format. So you've got the 3-digit zip code, the 3-digit area code, followed by the 7-digit telephone number. The review tab is very important, and I can't express this enough. Excel is not a word processor, right? Obviously, it's a Microsoft product. It does help. It does have functions and usefulness. However, it is not a Word document, so it will not automatically be doing spell checks for you. So if you want to do that, under the Review tab, you can go ahead and check your spelling. You can do translations, enter comments, and even protect your worksheet for future use. The View tab, that's another one that gets used a lot. That lets you, see different, status bars and things like that, that are useful. And then the last one that I'll talk about is going to be the Help tab. Between the Help tab and Dr. Google, most of the things are a quick search to help you through your issue. Okay. We did talk about that file button a couple times. So when you click on the file button, notice that it, it actually takes you outside of the Excel workbook. So you can't do anything in your workbook anymore. But, versus the different tabs, they will simply open up a different ribbon for you along the way. Okay. Now, there are more tabs and more ribbons than just this. And so sometimes when you're in a particular document, and now I need to change to a worksheet because I want to show you what a contextual tab looks like. And so now I'm in a chart, or I have a chart available. And so two different tabs have appeared, one for chart design and one for formatting. And basically, these are dynamic in that they will change based on what information you're linking to. And so in this case, it's a chart. So those came up. And then in this example, I have I'm in a table. And so the table design tab has come up, and it gives me additional options to work with my table on. Okay. So that's very important. Now, we talked about the ribbons, but there's a bunch of stuff on the ribbons, and it's useful to know what some of these things do, or how we do some of these things. Okay. And so I kind of want to talk about some of the differences in the icons that you see. And so the first one I want to talk about is the simple button, right? That's the simple button where you just do one thing and you just press it and it does something. And an example of that is like the bold button, right? All you got to do is click on it and it'll either bold it or unbold it, right? Depending on whether it was on or off. Italicize it or unitalicize it, underline it or ununderline it. So that's a simple button. You just click it and it does something, right? Then we've got some, I'm sorry, that's the toggle button, right? So you click it and it comes on or off, right? The click button, that's something that does something immediately. So the center, right? So I just clicked it and it centered the justification. I click and it does it automatically. So toggle lets us toggle between either the bold or the unbold. Then we've got drop downs. And so we've got a simple drop down. So in this case, under the copy, I have a copy or copy as a picture, right? And there's a lot of these. Under my underline, I've got a single underline or a double underline. Under my sort and filter, I've got other things that pop up. So those are simple drop downs, so I can basically select, and go through there. And then every once in a while, I've got some more complicated ones where, and I think this one's in my, no, it's in my merge. So here, in this one, so this is the merge and center. So it won't do anything if I just click on the drop down. It just gives me different options. And then depending on what I want, I would select. And so this is a split button. So basically, it's split in that I could, if I just click it once, it's going to do the merge and center. However, I could also do the different options. And so it lets me unmerge, merge, center, do different options that come up. And so, obviously the data isn't really formatted, but, let's say I select multiple rows. When I come here, I've got, merge and center, or I can merge across, which means I have individual rows that were just merged column-wise. So essentially these become one column, but multiple rows, right? So depending on how we do it, this has all sorts of other consequences later on. But that's an example of a split button. Okay. Every once in a while, we have some check marks. So in the View tab, we've got things that you can turn on or off, right? So do you want to see your headings? Do you want to see your grid lines? Do you want to see your formula bar, right? These things are check marks, so they'll turn on or off depending on what you do. And then besides all this, we have a bunch of keyboard shortcuts that we can use. And so I'll tell you that essentially there are some that we use regularly. So Alt F, that brings us to our File tab. And so if you're using a keyboard shortcut, instead of having to actually click on different icons, it gives you letters that you can keep using. And so, you can, and then by hitting escape, it takes you back to the previous menu. So alternate F brings you to your file menu. Alternate H gives you your home menu. Alternate P gives you your page layout menu. And alternate R takes you to your review. And then if you want to spell check, just click the S and it'll do the spell check. Okay. Or once you are going back to the home, you can use your cursors I'm sorry, having technical issues here. So you can once you're in that menu, you can use your and I'm having issues here. But once you're in a menu that you got to, you can then use your cursor and navigate through using your ups or downs, etc. And you can also use your tab and Alt tab to get back and forth. Okay. So that's one other way to access information besides using the ribbons. One useful tool is that there are certain things. So let's say you want to conditionally format the months that have 31 days. So you want to come here and say, okay, well, 31 days is good because that gives me more days of sales. So if you want to just do that, right, well, you could keep going style and good, or there are other things that you could do. You could actually do a keyboard shortcut that is Control Y, or you could also do your F4 key. Okay. And so just different tools that, may be useful to you as you go doing things, right? And so just some things to help you kind of navigate along. Okay. The other thing, and on this one, I'm going to switch back over to my shortcut tab because I do want to show you that not just do you have your ribbons and your keyboard shortcuts, and as as you go into this, some of these things are going to be more common to you, and the same things that we've known, the same keyboard shortcuts we know in Word typically also work in Excel, right? So your Control C is a copy, your Control V is a paste. Those will continue to work. Control B will bold, etc. If you know some of those keyboard shortcuts, try them. They're probably going to work. Also, your mouse is great. So you can right click and it pulls up a different menu. And this menu is going to be not everything, but most of the common things that you need to do. And that's going to, what happens and what menus you get on when you right click will also depend on where you're at and what you're doing, right? So here on the right click on the tab looks like that, but I right click on my table. Now I get a whole different, on my chart, I get a whole different set of options that got populated there. Okay. And then let's go back here. What happens if you change your mind? Well, I told you up here, you've got this undo button, right? But, well, there's a keyboard shortcut for it also. You can do Control Z. And Excel will remember up to 100 things, and it'll let you go back and undo or redo up to 100 different tasks. So I hope this video was useful. I tried to keep it short. Next videos will have more information. And so depending on where you feel more comfortable or think you need more reinforcement, feel free to follow along. Thank you.